Oh my gosh. Now I can see a reflection of my face where I'm like, but that's what life is all about. So welcome guys to another interview about sustainable motherhood. I'm Heather Shomay, host of the Mom is in Control podcast, and everything complete opposite of feeling in control as a mother, because I truly believe that the more we try to control, the worse it gets. So I have Victoria Gracie, author, jiu-jitsu instructor, founder of My Kind of Mama, an organization that helps families create harmonious households with mindful parenting. And book launch is today and I don't have the name in front of me.
I do.
Kip, let's talk about it.
Kip Health.
Love it. And you can check out this book at magicbelt.com.
Magicalbelt.com.
Magicalbelt.com. Okay, cool. And in your bio, it also says she's living proof that traditional molds were meant to be broken. And when I read that, I was like, heck yes. And I also was like, I would love to ask her, because the reason, we met at Dr. Shafali's Evolve, and we started the conversation about earplugs. And then after, I recognized your husband because my husband follows him online, and I was like, oh my gosh. So it's interesting that you say traditional molds are meant to be broken when you have this jiu-jitsu. Not only are you a jiu-jitsu instructor, but you're in a family where tradition in jiu-jitsu is everything. And you're like, traditional molds are meant to be broken. But I mean, it's just like meditation or anything else. There's these traditions, but we can make it our own. So I'm really curious about what you mean by that. Traditional molds are meant to be broken. And you're like sitting there laughing like, oh gosh, let's just jump right in.
I'm more worried about where to begin and who I'm going to offend with this.
If you offend people, you're on the right track.
But I've been doing the right track for quite some time, let me tell you. I believe that tradition is something that obviously brings things from generation to generation to generation in a beautiful way. It's usually a cultural or a family, integrated, antiquated idea that you just carry on because mom did it, and because her mom did it, and because their mom did it, or dad. And I am a thinker, and I overanalyze, if not over dissect. And sometimes I'm like, why do we do this still? It doesn't make any sense. And when I stop to think about some of the things that we do, both with motherhood, with birth, with just basic family interactions, I'm like, this doesn't make sense anymore. How can we break this chain? And so I have been a renegade for finding a different way of doing things. And it has been, rifts within friends and within families for sure, both in how I parent, how I speak to my children, how I expect people to speak to me, the boundaries that I now set and say, I won't let you speak to me that way. That doesn't feel good. And I don't want to be around that, or I'm not going to be around you. People don't take kindly to that. And they're like, wait a minute, but I'm this person. You must treat me this way. And I just kind of go, I know, but I'm this person and you could kind of treat me this way too.
I love that. So it's about, I love that you question, because I did that my whole life. And as a child, I was ridiculed for it. Like told, you're not going anywhere. And I'm like, it's those change makers, the ones that do break the mold, step outside of the box and think differently than everybody else, that create the change that needs to happen to be sustainable.
Yeah. And I will tell you that in a family of amazing and talented and courageous martial artists who have literally studied something inside and out, and they have a way of doing everything. Like they call it there is a most efficient way, Victoria. There has to be a most efficient way. And I go, absolutely. But efficiency, while very important, doesn't always resolve the emotional connection with oneself. And if it doesn't connect with me, yet it's efficient, it doesn't feel like something authentic that I want to keep doing. So I question it, and then I wonder, is efficient the best for everybody? And that's where, the jiu-jitsu world, I'm not touching the movements, I'm not touching any of those, but I am touching some of the paradigms in which that builds in their heads. So much so, and I'll make it to something as simple as like cutting a watermelon. My husband has a very specific way that he's always cut watermelons, and that's what he does. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't cut that way. So I'll find my most efficient way. And that's kind of how we figure out, what is the best for what.
Yeah. And I love this conversation because when it comes to mothering and motherhood, we learn from our mothers, we learn from our grandmothers. We go, when we're sleep deprived and exhausted, you look outside and go, what do I do? What do I do? So can you talk a little bit about your kind of journey to motherhood? Because I know it wasn't always easy for you.
No, it wasn't. I wanted a home birth, and that was the first problem because everybody around me was like, what? Hospitals were meant for birthing for this reason. This is why they created them. At least that's what they thought. And birth, what if something goes wrong? So then there's all these negative like projections of their fears onto my situation. And I had moments of self-doubt, as we all do. And not just moments, buckets of moments of self-doubt. And I stood steadfast in my belief that home birth was just the journey for me. I don't think it's for everybody. And I definitely don't think that it is easy or a choice that you have to go into just because. But I researched it. I thought about it. I felt strongly connected to it, and my husband was really supportive of it, and that's also a big thing. He's a factor in play in here. And so my home birth alone was the beginning catalyst of what people called Victoria has her own way of doing things. And it became this very like funny, like passive aggressive comment. I was like, it is my own way, but don't we all have our own way? And isn't that the beauty of life? And like, why am I being like put into this funny box for this? It doesn't even make any sense.
I know. I always say, welcome to the crazy club, where you're going to be considered crazy. You eat vegetables instead of, something else. And people are like, why would you feed that to your children? And you're like, oh my gosh, it's a way of being in the world. And it's almost like preparing yourself for that unconscious passive aggressiveness that will come when you choose to follow your heart and follow your soul.
Yeah.
So today is launch day for your book. I want to know what the passion was behind this and why you created Kip and the Magical Belts, right?
Yes. Great question. I created Kip and the Magical Belt out of a need that I felt that didn't exist. So first, it's the world's first ever kids jiu-jitsu picture book, period. Nothing like it exists out there. And it is a discussion that I think some parents have some difficulty going into that with their children. They either just say, stand up for yourself, as if a kid is going to know what that even looks like, or, they try to impose a certain way that they have built over time as an adult that they can now do. But a child isn't really equipped with, I believe, emotional intelligence or even the verbal understanding of how to approach these really difficult interactions. And, I think what I started with was when I watched my husband teach these children's classes. I literally saw for years, because I watched this over like 7 years before I even started the book. The book was written 3 years ago. And for 7 years first, I watched him transform, not just children, but humans. But these children became scared and they didn't even want to walk on the mat. And, they were holding their dad's leg and like pointing from behind, like coming out, owning it, looking up at my husband, who's like a tall 6'5", and saying, don't push me. And I'm like, this is a 4-year-old, a 4.5, 5-year-old is yelling at my husband not to push him. And he thinks he's going to accomplish a jiu-jitsu feat against a black belt. I'm like, this is fantastic. The confidence alone that came out of that, I was like, everybody needs this. And so I got pregnant, I had my child, and I said, let's get some books. We're book readers. We don't have a TV in our house, so all we do is read books. And I found that no book addressed some of the deep, even emotional intelligence that is needed for some of these things. And I said, this is a problem, because then our children are not entering into jiu-jitsu until 4.5, 5 years old, which is 5 is just the regulation class when kids could actually like sit down and focus and even still have a hard time with that, but be in a structured class environment. So before that, I said, there's got to be times in which we learn to set boundaries and to let them know that their body is theirs and that they don't need to get pushed around, because you've been at a park when that 2-year-old comes up to your 2-year-old and you're like, did you just push my 2-year-old? Like, what just happened? And you don't want to cut in because you don't want to micromanage. But yeah, so the book came from me understanding that there's got to be an earlier integration for our children to let them know that, hey, it's your body, your choice. And you have every right to say that doesn't feel good for my body. And I don't want you to do that. And we do it in the form of a magical belt, which the belt itself, people revere, like they like what color their belt is. And so children start at young and they really believe that there's this power in the belt and power in jiu-jitsu. And if we can get them a story where the belt comes to life and the belt talks them through the steps, we call it the 3 T's: talk, tell, tackle. And it shows them how to approach this. I think it's a story where the children can fall in love with Kip, which is the main character, and his struggles. And as the belt comes to life, they can have their belt too, and they can have the imagination that their belt can do things. And then, of course, Kip learns to train jiu-jitsu with Bubba the bear, and he sits there, and it's an amazing way for children to be able to execute these movements without hurting another child, so they can go hard and they can bond. And I think children thrive by physically exerting themselves and wrestling and understanding spatial awareness, and sometimes they don't even understand their body weight and their body power. So the ability to do this on a bear that can't get hurt is quite freeing.
And what I like about this too is the connection that the parent can create and cultivate with their child, because it's different when you're bringing a child to a class and maybe you're observing, maybe you're not, you're kind of like, what's happening there, right? But to be able to start that additional conversation that can happen off the mat, because I'm sure it's how do we transfer these skills? They say this in yoga. I'm sure it's the same thing. Jiu-jitsu, like how to take off the mat and into the world, right? So how do you take your jiu-jitsu off the mat and into the world, in the playground, wherever you are?
Yeah. And it's interesting because as many parents come, they literally come and they go, teach my kid discipline, teach my kid to defend themselves, please go. And I think sometimes they forget that parents are the primary model of instruction and caregiving, and like the idolization goes to them. So while we get them 1, 2, maybe 3 hours a week here at jiu-jitsu class, what they see from their parent, and when they connect and say, look, Kip's doing this. Oh, and he's handling it this way. How does that make you feel? Oh, let's try it together. Try it on Bubba. Now try it on me. It's just building such an intertwined understanding of, oh, you do jiu-jitsu with me. This is quality time with my parent. And all kids want is that quality time with their parent. And this is creating awesome and wonderful memories around jiu-jitsu, which can sometimes, not jiu-jitsu itself, but self-defense can be a scary thing for children. And if we're building beautiful memories around it, then they'll feel empowered and an ability to grow safely around something that they should be able to use for the rest of their life.
I love this. So I know you like talking about empowerment as well, because that's kind of the topic that we are talking about, creating this and cultivating it in our children. And you just briefly mentioned about, the importance of the adult, parent, whoever is in that child's life. Like, you are their primary caregiver, right? You are their role model. Totally. What do you think the importance is for, and I'm just saying women because I mainly attract women, but men as well, to feel empowered in their own life? It's okay to do the things that light you up, to feel good, body, mind, and soul, and empowered. What does this mean? And what do you think the value is in supporting your child?
Yes. What comes to mind first is that we as parents constantly want to do things to make our kids intelligent, to make them resilient, to give them courage and strength. And we do so much doing it to them that we don't realize that they're learning it from us. And that the more that we can just create our own resilience, execute our own courage, strengthen ourselves, empower ourselves, and actually live what we're trying to teach, the quicker they'll be on board to be like, that's how it's done. This is easy. Because most of the time we spend teaching our kids to try to do these things, and we're not even doing it ourselves. And that goes for me as a mother. Early on in my motherhood, I rarely took care of myself. I didn't want to shower every day. I was like, shower optional, right? Like newborns, shower optional. It just is what it is. And I didn't eat as well as I could have. And so I didn't feel good. And when you don't eat good, you don't feel good. When you don't feel good, you don't treat people well. And that was, symptomatic of the catch-22 we're in motherhood. And so I believe part of empowerment starts with the idea that you have to love yourself first. You have to feed yourself first. It's like the airplane thing. I mean, they can't say it enough. You put your mask on before you put someone else's. Otherwise, you can't help anyone else. And motherhood, like humanhood, is that. People you can't fill someone else's cup from an empty cup. And so I believe empowerment stems from just first feeding yourself love, believing in yourself. I didn't believe I could write this book for 3 years. I was like, oh, it might not happen. It might not happen. And all of a sudden I got a book. I have no idea how this went down. I just kept walking forward, kept believing and understanding. And so I believe empowerment honestly stems from self-love.
I love it. And so I love what you're saying, because I'm in the process of writing a book now. And I'm like, you just co-create this experience with fear, overwhelm, doubt, whatever is going to come up for you, right? I said, I've adopted these emotions like they are my children. Like, come on, let's go. I'll feed you, but I'm not allowing you to run the show, right? And I love that you say, I don't know how it happened. I just kept taking one step foot forward. One step foot forward. One. You know what I mean?
What are those feet?
Yes. So everybody knows or has heard, put your oxygen mask on first. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Why do you still think people understand the concept, but they cannot give themselves permission to fill their cup first?
I think one of the reasons, and I actually thank Dr. Shefali for a lot of the mentality that I'm able to sustain because of, or in thinking like this, is because from such a young age, we weren't given autonomy. We weren't given the strength to believe in ourselves, to listen to our inner gut. We were victims of external needs and wants, our parents wanting us to be a certain way, our, external family members just pouring family expectations all over us. And so we weren't in tune with ourselves. We weren't in tune with what our body needs. I even see now, I fell into a bit of a familial tradition of this eating a certain way. We must eat this way. And I stood back and finally told my husband, I want to do intuitive eating. I'm going to eat when my body tells me to. I'm not going to eat when it doesn't tell me to. I'm going to eat what it tells me to and not going to eat what it tells me not to. And so I think there's an intuitive connection that we have to have with ourselves that really allows us to have that permission to do what is best for us. And we've denied it for so long. We've become people pleasers, perfectionists, and cared so much about everyone else's feelings that we really have disregarded our own. And not that we shouldn't disregard others, but we have to do it making sure that we have had our needs met. And I mean needs, not wants. So as long as our needs are being met, I think we can move forward with grace and gentility for others' needs as well.
I love this conversation. So needs and wants, if you understand the difference, I need food. I want a large cheese pizza. Right?
That too.
Yeah. So, but I don't need a large cheese pizza, but I need food, right? So it's about the choices we make, listening to ourselves. So understanding from the past, we may have brought this in from don't listen to yourself, don't do this, do what I say, do what everyone else tells you to do. Intuition, I talk about this a lot, the voice, really listening to yourself and making it such an important part of your intuitive process. My brain talks to me all the time. It might be ego. It might be something else. And then how do I know when it's my gut? How do I know when it's my intuition? So can you explain that a little bit about intuitive eating, intuitive parenting, just that knowing?
Good question. I think that intuition is that deep feeling in our gut when something doesn't feel right. It's similar to that, but it speaks different tones, good, bad, excited. And I think when we tune out from that, we get programmed responses. I'm going to eat now because it's lunchtime and that's what lunchtime is telling me. I'm going to, call this person because I have to versus I feel intrinsically called to speak with this person to connect. And I think it's a fine line between urge and real deep connect want. So I'd say young children, they're very urge driven. I want to do this, so I'm gonna go do it right now. And they're it almost seems a little abrupt, but that's actually how we all are. The want comes up so abruptly, but we hold it back, control. I'm gonna think about this first. I'm gonna dissect whether that is a good idea and figure that out later. But if you listen to that want and instead of dissecting, say, I hear you, that's an urge, that's something I do want to do, and then find, the right time and elegant way to do it, that I think is a little more intuitive connection versus just over planning, overthinking, control in the over control way. There's a nice way to control it. And I think, my connection with my intuition feels a little bit more like a listening to an urge that is not quite, that youthful jump in the pool for no reason urge.
I get it. And I love the, I don't know, because it is unique to you, right? Some people are like, I'm visual. Some people like, I hear things. It doesn't matter. So it's just up to you. I always use the term ache, like, oh, it just won't go away. And then you try to push it away and you're like, I'm attracted to this. I want to do this. It just won't stop. Like it's constantly going to go there and then it's just going to eat away at you. Right. So if you're like, I can't write a book. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's just always there. Do it.
That those voices telling you I can't write a book, I don't know what I'm doing, existed to the day that this book was delivered to me. Like literally, I felt like, why? What does that make? Who am I to write this book? And I actually, Shefali, I do her online webinar of the Year of the Awakened Heart. And last night she was explaining the same thing. And last week she was saying, who is she to have written these books? And now she's got 3 on Oprah, bestseller. The thing is, it's ridiculous what our brain will convince us of, even though each of us has a story to tell. Each of us has something to share and to offer and to give. And Heather, I can't wait to hear your book. I mean, it's just amazing.
And as soon as you said that, I was like, no. But I also truly believe that when we dive into that space, like freedom comes, and that's alignment. And it's the path that what you resist will persist and grow bigger.
Yeah. And to be honest, I felt like I was walking in the dark for half of writing this book because I didn't know what to do next. Everyone's like, you just seemed like you knew what you were doing. I had no idea what I was doing. I asked a lot of questions. I got a lot of help, but truly I was in the dark. I didn't know what the next step would be, what it would hold, the challenges that I would be facing, but I went through it courageously and said, I'm in the dark. If I don't keep moving, I'll never find light. So I must move.
Love it. And by your courageous action, you're giving a gift to so many families.
I hope so.
Yes. So tell people where they can get the book and all of that fun stuff.
Sure. So this is Kip and the Magical Belt. You can get the book at magicalbelt.com. It comes as a set with the bear, if you like,
cool.
as well, in time for days. Yes. So you can learn about jiu-jitsu, learn about Kip and training, and actually have your child training with you and the book right before bedtime. They say bully-proof your kid before bedtime. That's kind of our tagline.
Oh my God, I love that. And such a great holiday gift as well.
It's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Victoria, for being here. And you also have another website.
I have a lot of websites. I mean, if you just go to Victoria Gracie,
where else can people find you?
Great. So you can find me at victoriagracie.com. You can find my mommy mentoring, which I do a similar mommy coaching thing to helping parents through this process, but I also help mothers find their own motherhood and figure out what's right for them. I'm a certified doula, so it was really passionate to be able to support women through what I felt I lacked support in, and so I made that passion of mine. So that's my kind of mama, MAMA.com, and then of course magicalbelt.com. I'm everywhere on the internet. I mean,
perfect.
I'm on the internet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Heather. Thank you for everything that you do.